Hello everyone, happy 8th night of Hanukkah. I am so excited for this live tonight. It's something that I've been dreaming of and thinking about doing for a long time. And I'm truly honored to be joined tonight by an incredibly special teacher of mine, a profound spiritual teacher, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. And he'll be joining us in just a minute. And it's an incredible day. As I said, it's the 8th night of Hanukkah, which carries its own incredible, potent energy. There's this unbelievable amount of light that we believe is revealed in the world as we light the 8 candles after days and days of increasing the number of lights on our Hanukkot. And it's also Rosh Chodesh Tevet. That was yesterday night, the new moon of Tevet. We're entering a new month with this energy of light. For me, it is my Hebrew birthday. The 1st of Tevet is my Hebrew birthday, so that was also yesterday. And your Hebrew birthday is a really auspicious and powerful time to both draw down blessing and also to put into reality new actions, to create change, to thank you Jordana, thank you. So your Hebrew birthday carries this powerful energy for you to initiate something, and being my 40th year, this 40th year of blessing that I've been gifted by Hashem, I really wanted to use this time to learn something together, and also to introduce you to someone who has been such a profound influence in my life. He is a spiritual teacher whose words and writing and lessons have the most incredible universal appeal. Even though he obviously is teaching Torah, his words just resonate with hearts and minds from people all over the world. And I hope Rabbi Jacobson will be here soon, so that you will hear from him all of this wisdom that he carries. And it's I'm seeing everyone jumping on, and I'm so appreciative that you're here to celebrate with me. This to me is almost better than a party or a dinner party or anything else, to be able to sit and talk about these spiritual ideas together and learn together and really tap into the energy of tonight, of this day, of this time, and really for all of us to understand how we can move forward from Hanukkah and carry this light with us into what is often a challenging. Let's see, here we are.
Okay, great.
Hi again, Rabbi.
Great. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to see you. And as always with these Instagram lives across the world, I'm always surprised that I'm in the daytime and you're in the nighttime, and it's this contrast. But being the 8th day of all in the light.
We're going to reach a place that's beyond light and dark.
Amen. So before you joined, I was just telling everyone how, in addition to this being the 8th night of Hanukkah, it's also the new month of Tevet that's just come in last night. And it's my Hebrew birthday, and I wanted to do this learning in honor of this really auspicious time, to learn how we can all tap into the energy of the 8th day, and that we could do something powerful in this place, in this format together. So I'm honored that you're here with us tonight, and there isn't a week that goes by without someone messaging me here or emailing me and asking me, what are these concepts of Jewish spirituality that you're talking about? I've never heard them before. How can I learn? Where should I go? What should I read? And I always direct them to your incredible resources and your book, Towards a Meaningful Life, because it has had for me the most profound effect on the way I choose to bring spirituality into my home, the values with which I live, the way I speak to my children, and the things that I want to teach to them. And so your teachings have completely revolutionized the way I experience Judaism and experience spirituality in general.
Well, it's always moving. I'm very moved and touched by your, personal life experience. There's nothing more sacred than that. That journey that you're on and all its twists and turns. So I feel honored that I can be part of it. And I feel honored that we're sitting and talking right now. All those years that we spent learning and studying and discussing, so,
Yeah.
and that glow, your glowing face, and I've been receiving all your notes, Ayin. I love it. You have that elegance, a certain sublime elegance in how you integrate spirituality and your design and the ambiance. So what shall I say? To me, as
Well,
a teacher, it's the greatest blessing to see that someone has taken these teachings and made it their own and has spread their wings and flying with it. So I commend you.
thank you. Well, it's all because of you. And I was thinking, what was the first time, when was the first time that I met you and how I came to your classes? Our beautiful friend, our mutual friend, Stacy, brought me to one of your classes, and I was probably
Right.
24, 25 at the time. And you were teaching at that point on the Upper West Side. And I feel like I've journeyed with you from the Upper West Side to the Lower East Side. And there were days where you would sit with, four girls in their 20s trying to work out what our life mission was. And you always have this genuine passion and interest in helping every person who comes to your community. And really, I feel like even though I had such a rich Jewish upbringing, and I really do, I have such a traditional, culturally, Zionistically rich Jewish home and foundation. When I came across the teachings of Hasidut and the Tanya and the Kabbalah, which you teach so eloquently, it was like a light went off for me. And suddenly here was the Judaism of the soul, which I didn't even realize was lacking in my own Jewish education. And you have this unbelievable sensitivity to all of our human aches and pains and our yearnings and just our contemporary struggles and desires. And I know that everything that you're teaching is coming from the Torah. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about where you're learning, like where does your teaching come from, your mentor who, you always reference, so that people can understand what's the source of this. This is Torah, but what is the source for you?
Absolutely. I'm proud to share, but I want to begin with one short preface, which you'll be familiar with because I've always said it over the years. A sad, tragic fact, Michaela, is this, that most Jews have been exposed to a very, I would say, mechanical, hollow, empty, and almost irrelevant Judaism. Whether there's traditions, rituals, we go through motions. For some, it's just a joke. For some people, have actually been hurt by it. But very few will say, I grew up with a very deep psychological, spiritual Jewish experience. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sidor. I mean, I've heard this so many times. There's definitely exceptions. And I apologize to anyone out there that has had a beautiful experience, but so many have not. So a big part of the work that I do is to dispel myths and stereotypes, myths and stereotypes, and actually expose and express the deep spiritual personalization. Like, for example, I remember someone coming to one of my classes. He was a singer-songwriter, and he said to me, he heard about a soul. He says, I didn't know that Jews believe in a soul. I thought it was a Buddhist concept. That's what he told me. And others, everyone had similar, very, with their bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, and that's when it ended, more or less.
Yes.
So once that is stated, let me now say this. Where I come from is, I grew up steeped very much into Jewish scholarship, but especially the mystical and spiritual dimension. In other words, not just ritual, but SPI ritual, spiritual. So the rituals were always filled with deeper meaning. You didn't just light a flame on Hanukkah, but you understood that the flame is a reflection of your soul. And as the flame rises, so do you. And as the flame is restless, so are you. That whole personalization, I would say, deep relevance. So where do the teachings come from? They actually go back, interestingly, almost 4,000 years. We're talking about Abraham, the biblical Abraham, and his wife Sarah, and then Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah and Rachel. And we talk about Moses. You talk about all the prophets, whether King David, Isaiah. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of them. So you have an unbroken chain of academic literature and scholarship, which includes the spiritual, and was always part and parcel. There's no way it would have lasted thousands of years if it was just empty rituals. You know, Jews are pretty smart people. They would have seen through it. So where I come from is my great mentor and master was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who I studied with and also worked for. You know, we could talk about that a bit more later. So on Shabbat and holidays, when no notes were taken because of the restrictions of no notes and no recordings, I had to memorize hours and hours of these talks, retain it, and then publish it. So Rabbi Schneerson himself was a link in a chain to his father and to his father-in-law, and it goes back 90 generations in an unbroken chain. So there's a certain authenticity when you have that integrity. That's not like just some type of pop psychology or somebody came up with something in the year 2021 or the year 2020, but it's actually deeply, it's both, what I like to call it, both timeless and timely. And it's grounded in real texts, biblical texts, Talmudic texts, Zoharic, mystical texts, and many of them. And, you know, I was trained that there's nothing, you don't just say something, it's grounded in a text, but that text has to be made come alive. And sadly, this is a fact. Many people will resonate with this. The people who really know these texts, many of them don't know how to communicate to the secular world. And the people that communicate to the secular world don't know the texts. So, so I see myself somewhat like a bridge between taking these original texts and turning them into something that is not creating anything new. It's like they say, whether it's art or music, all the truths have always been there. We just have to uncover them. And that's essentially what I, thank God, was blessed to be able to do. I know the texts from the scholarly level, but also been blessed to how to communicate them in a resonating, personal way. You and I would never have communicated had I just spoken Hebrew and read to you biblical texts. It had to be in a language, as you pointed out before, that really addresses the human condition with all its bizarre complexities, the ups and downs, the joys, the sadness, the tragedies, the griefs, the absurdity of life. And that's in a summation of where I come from.
Yes. And it's true that, you know, when you talk about the chain, and this is really, it's in our blood, it's been passed down to us in so many ways. So when I sit in a Torah class today and something strikes me as being truthful or hitting a place in my heart where I feel like I already know it, even though I haven't heard that concept before consciously, it makes sense when you describe that this has been in our heritage for thousands and thousands of years, and it's not something that's created in the moment. It's something that we've inherited, and to not be able to harness it, to not be able to see how it plays out in our emotions and our psychology and our day-to-day lives is such a loss for us, because there's a whole part of ourselves that we don't access.
Absolutely. Look, the rule goes this way. At the beginning of my book, Toward a Meaning for Life, I say, the soul has to be nourished as much as the body. Just as your body needs vitamins and minerals and nutrients and exercise and hygiene, the soul too is made up of components. And this beautiful tapestry, which we call the Kabbalistic or the mystic or the Hasidic soulful tradition, it gives us an x-ray of your soul and tells you, here are the parts of your soul that need these and these spiritual vitamins, these and these minerals, these and these exercises. And it's wonderful because it's really learning to actualize yourself. It's not coming from outside, it's learning to actualize yourself, and also learning to harness some of your weaker points and turning them into assets as well.
Yes. Rabbi, I wasn't going to ask this. I was going to dive into Hanukkah, but I feel like there must be a lot of mothers and parents watching. And I want to know, how did your parents talk to you about your soul? Because here we are trying to ingrain that consciousness in our children. What happened in your home?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody ever asked me that question, by the way. Interestingly, Michaela, you may be surprised by my answer. They didn't say much. It was more through actions and through love than words. You know, sadly, it's like something like this. You know, when someone asks you a question, what does it feel like to be healthy? If you have an answer, there's a problem. If health feels like something, you probably need a doctor. Health is meant to be seamless. You're not supposed to feel your blood rushing through your arteries and veins, or your heart pumping, or your brain working. So in a way, in my home and family, there was a certain absolute unconditional acceptance of me and my siblings. I just knew I was loved. I knew I was valued. I was not invalidated. It was just that from the youngest of age that I can remember, and even probably beyond my memory, I felt I mattered. I was valuable. I was actually precious and indispensable. And especially my father, my mother as well, but my father, he was like, he had a lot to say, but for him, essentially speaking about it is already somewhat, it's like if you grew up around music, you just hear music all the time. And I had that those resonating truths of love and acceptance. You know, when I'll tell you how sad it was for me. The first time I heard about abuse, the first time I heard about neglect, about a child being abandoned or hurt, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Because when it didn't happen to you, you don't think it's real. And then unfortunately I did find out. So it's like, to me, it's like my lungs were breathing. I never realized what it is not to breathe. Then when you see somebody struggling to breathe, you suddenly, oh, wow, that's a real big thing. Then, of course, now I don't take it for granted at all, but I did take it for granted. And it was just an ongoing thing, like even a Shabbat table Friday night. It was so, I looked forward to it. It was warm. My father was home. He was usually very busy. There was that serenity when my mother lit the candles, coming fresh new clothes at the Shabbat table, sitting, talking, laughing. It wasn't even there was no regimen. There was no like checklist. You just were, it's like when you're comfortable in your own skin. We were just comfortable. I was comfortable in my own skin. And my parents validated that all the time. They probably spoiled me a bit too, because I'm the oldest of 5.
I'm the oldest too.
Okay, here we go.
That is so beautiful, and it's true that our children probably, they do learn more from the way we are as opposed to what our lip service is.
But I will say, Michaela, if I may interject, I will say today, because I know many people don't have that as a given, I always suggest to parents in the morning and in the evening and as many times as possible, like say the Moda'ani, tell your child, you matter, you're valuable, you're God's child. I'm here to protect you. I'm here to do everything possible to help you actualize yourself. So today, it can't be said enough. So even though it's true, there's a certain silence, but today, because of the challenges and children will be exposed to all kinds of stuff, I'm a big believer that you have to articulate even the inarticulate.
Yes. Thank you for that. That's beautiful, beautiful advice. And so now, we are the 8th night of Hanukkah, and this is for many people probably the 8th night celebration, just being here learning with you. Can you talk about the power of the 8th night, and also how we can take that and use that light going into these dark months, which are really often challenging times for people coming up to the end of the calendar year and the Northern Hemisphere winter?
Absolutely. In the sages, the Jewish sages, especially the mystics, talk about the difference between number 7 and number 8, as 7 being the cycle of time, the 7 days of the week, the 7 years of the sabbatical. In the Kabbalistic structure, the 7 emotions: love, I'll just say them quickly: love, discipline, compassion, determination, humility, bonding, and dignity. And 8, they call that the transcendent number. They say it actually is like hovers above the 7 and protects the 7. So wherever you see the number 8 in Judaism, you'll find that it refers to something that's beyond the structure. So we go through 7 days of the cycle, And then comes the 8th day of Hanukkah. And the message of Hanukkah is, of course, the light that pierces the darkness. So now we have all 8 lights, and they have the power to transcend our structures. It's like when you look at a beautiful piece of art, you don't just appreciate it, you're in awe of it. That awe is an 8th day experience. It's a transcendent experience where you're absorbed in something greater than you are. So the 7 days, you light, each flame corresponds to another dimension in your life, another dimension in your personality. And the 8th comes and gives that like hovering, transcendent power. So it's a very powerful day in that sense, because it has the ability, therefore, to transcend everything we go through. You know, the Hanukkah message itself is light that comes from the darkness. Because remember, the story of Hanukkah was that the Greeks had defiled and desecrated the temple, and there was no oil to be found to light the menorah. And the miracle was that they found one crucible of oil, and it burned for 8 days. What is the spiritual message? That even in the darkest moments, there's always a pilot flame somewhere in your heart and soul. Even if you're not aware of it, even if you think things are hopeless or you're resigned, there's always that pilot flame. That's the Hanukkah message. But then that pilot flame could also have levels and measures of growth. Comes the 8th day and says, here we have it. You have the entire cycle and structure, and also that which is beyond structure. Essentially introducing the transcendent into the immanent, the transcendent into our personal lives. That's a short summation of a pretty profound and large topic, but I think it's a good way to do it that way, to sum it up.
Rabbi, so after this live, because I don't want anyone rushing away now, but when they're sitting tonight, what's something someone could do? Should they pray? Should they think about those 8 lights? If they haven't lit their menorah, if they have one, they can light it, but how can we tap into it tonight? Like, what can they do actionably when we get off this call?
Great question. Well, your questions are great, Michaela. That's why you're so popular. You asked the right questions. So there's a very beautiful statement by Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. He was a great rabbi that lived. He passed away in 1950. He was in the last generation. He said the following. He said in Yiddish. I'll say it in Yiddish just in case someone speaks Yiddish, and also has a nice tone to it. He said, "Medav sich zuhören, so was the Lichterlech der Zell." We need to listen to what the little flames tell us. They tell us a story. So here's the exercise. When you light the candles, whether you lit them already or you will light them, sit near the flames for a little while, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, and think of the flames as a storyteller. They're telling you a story, the story of your life. Identify with a flame, because you see, the closest approximation of our soul is a flame. I alluded to it earlier. We don't see it. No one knows what a soul looks like, but we sure know that a body without a soul is, unfortunately, I don't want to use the word, but it's a corpse. So what does a soul look like? It looks like a flame. It says in the book of Proverbs, the flame of God is the soul of a human being. And what do we see in a flame? And here is just a few meditations that each of us can apply. First of all, a flame defies gravity. Everything is pulled down by gravity. The flame licks the sky. And so too, we are restless beings that are not satisfied with animal bliss and with the status quo. We're always seeking. We're always looking to grow one way or another. That's one element. A flame is also illuminates. Without any effort, it dispels darkness. It doesn't have to fight with darkness. So should you have any darkness in your life, and identify maybe something that you're maybe sad about, maybe a loss, maybe some death, unfortunately, maybe a health issue, or maybe other darkness that you've experienced in life, look at the flame and say, can I find the flame within me that will be more powerful than my darkness? And it's not a battle, because, as I said, a little flame dispels much darkness without effort. And finally, a flame also illuminates and warms its environment. Are you a walking flame? When people meet you, do they get illuminated and warmed by your presence? It's a good question to ask. It could also be the opposite. Are you draining people, or are you illuminating them? Now, not
Yes.
most people won't tell you if you ask them because they don't want to say anything, but it's a good question to ask yourself. So here are just a few of many stories that the flames tell us. And so therefore, you're not just lighting the flames, you're also looking at them as symbols. You can think of it like a template that describes who you are. Are you like that flame? And you can then look at it and say, how can I become more flame-like? As in warming, illuminating, restless, healthy restlessness, growth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Hanukkah, we light the flames at night, and by the door facing outside, because the point is not just to illuminate the bright, but also to illuminate the dark. That's
Yes.
a critical message. And that's just some of the lessons. Obviously, there's more. You know, if
That's
anybody
beautiful.
wants to take it further, all they got to do is go to meaningfullife.com, my website, and they'll find plenty of meditations on the nights of Hanukkah, especially this last night, where it all comes to a climax, to an apex. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. You can stay up all night learning and reading and tapping into the energy. You still have hours left in the Northern Hemisphere. So Rabbi, now let's talk a little bit about Hebrew birthdays. And we're talking about the soul, and we're here tonight, so tell us about how do we celebrate our Hebrew birthday? What's the point of, we live in this calendar year, the secular calendar. Tell us about the Hebrew birthday.
So first of all, I want to wish you a happy birthday, Michaela. That's not for that.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you. And
Thank you.
in my book, Toward a Meaningful Life, I have a chapter on birth. I would definitely advise everyone to read that chapter, especially in relation to your birthday. And there's one line there that has resonated with many, many people. I didn't realize how much it would. And there, the line goes like this: birth is God saying that you matter. Birth is God saying you matter. So the key point to remember is this: the day you were born is not just another day in the year. It's a day when the universe changed, because you now became an indispensable component. And what you need to accomplish, only you can accomplish in this world. Now, specifically, it's around the Hebrew birthday, because the Hebrew birthday symbolizes more of the spiritual side of things. But the fact is, it's your birthday period. If someone's celebrating their secular birthday, the same message applies. Because look, if they were born on a secular day, it happens to also be a Hebrew birthday. So the key thing, this is a day that your contract is renewed. Your life, why are you here? Mark Twain said that the two most important days in your life is the day you were born and the day when you find out why. So you know when you were born. Now it's time to find out why. And that means your mission in life. How are you going to use your unique tools and your unique skills and your unique opportunities to some way, let's go back to the Hanukkah theme, illuminate and warm the corner of your world, your environment. So this is not meant to put a heavy trip on anyone. It's meant to be a gift, a responsibility. So Michaela, you use your skills right here. This Instagram we're doing is a perfect demonstration of you using your platform and your friends and your followers to bring them a powerful message. You are, in a way, living up to part of your birth, your mandate in life. So birthday is essentially to be seen as the day when your contract is renewed. It's the day your soul entered into existence. And in the mystics teach us that time is like a spiral. Every time you come back to that point in the same point of the year, the energy that existed the first moment you were born is repeated, but in a new plane, on a new level. Yes. So to me, that's the single most important thing of all. It's about you and your purpose. And it's a day not to focus on the means, but on the end. The means are all the different things we do. We wake up in the morning, we press the snooze button, we take exercise, we shower, we have breakfast, our coffee, tea. That's not the purpose of your life. Those are the means. Those are means. Those are like stepping stones. A birthday is a day to figure out, okay, how am I living up to my potential? I just want to quote, it's a very powerful poem by Oliver Wendell Holmes. So he says, the poem is called The Voiceless. And there's a tragic line right in the beginning, a very sad line. He says, alas, alas to those that die with their song still inside them. how sad that is. We have a unique song inside you. The Zohar talks about it. And we want to make sure that you sing your song. So a birthday is a good time to ask yourself, are you singing your song? Or are you singing someone else's song? Are you just living up to expectations, parents, educators, with all good intentions? Have you found your song and you have the courage to be you? As my son, I remember he came home from school. He was a little kid and he said to me, he heard something really nice. He said, we learned today, you were born an original. Don't become a copy.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. So just to finish the story, years later, today he's a father of his own, Mendel. And I asked him recently, I said, do you remember that? He didn't even remember the story. I was excited because my son was excited. Wow. So he didn't remember. So I said, so Mendel, what happened to you? Are you an original or a copy? Now, no pun intended, he happens to be a copywriter.
But he is also a gifted writer and poet. And
right. So he answered, he tells me, so I said to him, so are you original or a copy? So he says to me, Ta, I'm an original copy. Okay, whatever that means. That was just being a little cute. But I think these are important thoughts to think about on this day.
Yes.
And the interesting thing, every person on earth has a birthday.
Everyone has a birthday, yes. And everyone has that day to reflect and really check in with where we are and where we want to be moving. So I'm turning 40, well, you know, in the midst of it. And it struck me.
You don't look 40 to me.
Well, thank you. I don't feel it, but I'm young at heart. And every year is a blessing. Every year is a gift. So in 40, in Judaism, I see this number pop up as a point of transition. You know, the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years before they reached Eretz Israel. You know, it's 40 weeks that a baby's in utero. It's 40 days from the beginning of Elul to Yom Kippur. Is 40 a transition point? I'm sure there are lots of people who are at this transition point listening. So I want to talk about it because I feel like we're so caught up in the, you know, 40 under 40 list. And there's this like sort of honoring of being young and what can you do before you're 40. And I know that there are a lot of people here who are 40 and older. And it seems that in Judaism, I look at Rabbi Akiva, you know, that 40 is an entry point into a new state.
Absolutely. 40, first of all, just let's quote the Talmud. Like you just said, when the Jews arrived at the promised land, it was 40 years after they had left Egypt. So the verse in the Bible says, up till this day, you were not given a mind to perceive, a heart to understand, and ears to hear, and eyes to see. And it's explained because till 40, a person doesn't fully appreciate a certain level of quality of life. And though obviously till 40 we can be very productive and it doesn't diminish, but there's a certain maturity. The Talmud puts it this way, that a student begins to fully appreciate the deeper intention of their teacher 40 years later. And it's a certain maturity that we all arrive at that's hard to really describe to someone who's not been there. And it's really also a certain, I guess, perspective. You know, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're still either beginning to build a career, you're just out of school, beginning to build relationships. At 40, you're beginning to think in terms of context, contextualizing. You know, you probably have had a disappointment, maybe a loss, a setback. And all of that creates a certain seasoning and maturity. Like I know from people from my classes, people, once they hit the 40s, they're more serious. They want to know purpose of life. Not that 20-year-olds don't want to know it, but they're still like someone on the merry-go-round. They're partying, they're having fun, you know. So 40 is not exactly the moment you turn 40. It's that stage. And being that I've been there already, I can tell you that it only gets better. It's like wine as it seasons and gets a little like vintage. It's not old at all. It's young, absolutely, young in spirit. But there's a certain, I would say, a certain maturity, a certain lack of pettiness. Again, context. If used properly, it can really be a new stage in life in appreciating the real things like love and truth and soul and God and values and children. So yeah, you're entering a very beautiful stage.
Thank you. Yes, it sounds beautiful, and I'm very excited. And well, another thing that comes up, you know, in Judaism, we hear that you can only study Kabbalah and mysticism at the age of 40 with a certain amount of learning. And I bring this up because now a lot of people have sent me questions since I mentioned that I was doing this live. And one of the questions that came up a few times was, I'm interested in Kabbalah. How do I study? How do I access those teachings? And I wanted to bring this to you because I know that you've once said to me, you know, if you say that you are, you're not, or you'll rephrase it. But someone who's interested in mysticism, it sounds like it's a popular word, Kabbalah. How do they access those teachings?
Well, unfortunately, many people think mysticism and Kabbalah, they're more taken by the sensationalism of it, like knowing about reincarnation or the afterlife, or the mysteries, that type of the mystique of things. And I have to say this: many people focus on that, and they really don't have control over their conscious lives. So that's one of the reasons until 40 is told not to really seriously study it, because it still can be immature. It's like, you know, being caught up with this, just like, you know, a child shouldn't be intimate sexually. They're not ready for it. Mysticism is a serious undertaking about responsibility. It's not just, oh, I'm going to find out about which animal I reincarnated from, or interpretation of dreams. And I find a lot of people try to replace personal growth and responsibility with this the exotica. And so, but on the other hand, it's like there's an expression they say about Kabbalah: those that know don't say, and those that say don't know.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I will say this. However, there is plenty of literature today that translates Kabbalah into language that people can relate to. I do, some of my work is in that regard. Like, for example, I have a book called The Spiritual Guide to Counting the Omer, where I go through the seven emotional, spiritual attributes and personal attributes that are based on Kabbalistic writing. A lot of my teachings are Kabbalistic. I have, and I try to bridge it in a way that allows people to appreciate it while also not getting caught up in the sensationalism. So there are books out there. There is a great book, The 13-Petaled Rose by Adin Steinsaltz. That is an introduction. Aryeh Kaplan's books, an introduction to Kabbalah, and some of the translations of Kabbalistic works. My book on the Omer is a good example. Even Toward a Meaningful Life, though it's more practical psychology, but it's based on a lot of Kabbalistic ideas like Tzimtzum and the concealment and light. And so I would just suggest someone should browse online. I mean, I know some stuff out there is not necessarily accurate, to be very honest, like anything, but some stuff is really good. And find something that resonates. And it's always good to talk to someone that knows their stuff, because you don't want to get caught up in I don't say con artists, but people who are misrepresenting what Kabbalah really is.
Yes.
Kabbalah, at the end of the day, is the study of the soul. It's the study of your inner workings and the cosmos. And its goal is to make you a more responsible person, not to find a scapegoat and escapism. It's meant to make you a more responsible human being in living up to your potential and your calling in this world.
Yes. And is inextricably linked to Judaism and Torah and all the other mitzvot that we experience.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. I say that because you told me once that Kabbalah had nothing to do with Judaism. So I wanted to preface that.
Absolutely. Think of it like this. If you do a mitzvah, you light a candle for Shabbat or for Hanukkah, Kabbalah will teach you the soul of the mitzvah. And the Talmud will teach you the mechanics of the mitzvah. So it's like a computer program. You type on your phone or your computer, but what's going on, the programming behind the scenes, the DNA is the Kabbalah of it.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so some other questions that came up. How does someone know that they're in the right place, as in the right city or country, if they're moving around? How does someone know that they should stay in one place as opposed to being in another?
You can't always know. There's no like little bird that comes to tell you. It's always good, first of all, to get advice from dear friends that you trust. Secondly, you can always do something for temporary and see how it works. Sometimes you go, so that way you don't close all the doors. And if it starts working out, then maybe that's the place to remain. So you don't have to take a full risk in that sense. Finally, I believe very much that God leads the footsteps of a human being. You know, we can make all our plans, but then some things happen. Look at what COVID did and so on.
Yes.
And suddenly we realize that our plans, we're not really in control of our plans. So it's important to learn to be a good swimmer, to navigate the vicissitudes. Yes. You don't have to control where you are. Wherever you are, make the best of it. A good swimmer, put them in any water, they'll know how to swim. A bad swimmer, any water, they won't know how to swim. So it's more about learning how to navigate than about the actual location. You know, people get stuck. Oh, I like Australia. I like New York. I like California. I like Israel. I like wherever it may be. It's really, if you're a healthy person that lives from the inside out, you can really be anywhere. Obviously, there are, for example, if you have children, you need schooling. You know, obviously. So it's not like but taking everything into account, you can pretty much find, if you're resilient, beauty almost anywhere.
Miguel just put a Mexican flag in the chat below.
There you go. Okay. He's not going to be left out of this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So how can we deal with the fear of getting out there and shining our light? So when you have fear, that inhibits you from really expressing.
Well, a few things. First of all, the best way to fight fear is action, not sitting in therapy and trying to analyze your whole life. Action. If a person is afraid of swimming, you got to jump into the water and start swimming. And you learn it in the job. You know, I find that action is the greatest force that challenges the inertia and the status quo that fear paralyzes us. So, for instance, a person, let's say, wants to begin learning music, a musical instrument, but they're afraid they won't succeed. It'll take too long. Start small. Start 10 minutes a week. You want to run a marathon, start small. Action is the greatest force that challenges and counters fear. That's number one. Number two, you have to have good friends, because sometimes when we're in a funk or we're in a place where we have lost confidence, you need someone to kick you in the pants sometimes, to be very blunt. And you need to invite them to do so. Not they should force. That you say, you know, like a good coach. Sometimes we just have that fear. Someone says, I want to just stay home. I'm depressed. No, let's go out. We're going to do something. Obviously, not someone who's going to assault your psyche and completely overwhelm. You have to know someone who knows how to pace it. That's the second thing. And finally, the third thing, you need to learn about your soul. The more you learn about your soul, the more confident you become. It's when you don't know about your soul, then you begin to look around. Okay, what makes a person happy? So you look at your friends, you look at this one, you look at that one. You never identify who are you? Who are you? And what are you good at? And that always creates fear, because it's a fear of almost lack of identity, lack of personality. And you need to discover who you are. And that is really through spiritual study. I like to call it the spiritual SPA. SPA is an acronym for study, prayer, action.
Yes,
so
I love that.
Cognitive, emotional, and behavioral conditioning. So I talked about action, I talked about the cognitive, and finally the emotional is doing things that you like and love, that are passionate about, and being with others that help support that.
Beautiful. Speaking of prayer, some people are versed and able to open a Sidor and pray from a Sidor. Some people are not. Do you think that we should be training ourselves to pray from a Sidor, or is it enough to have a private conversation with Hashem every day and speak in our own voices, in our own language?
whatever you're comfortable doing, because if you force yourself, you're not going to end up praying. I have a nice section in my book called 60 Days, A Spiritual Guide to Counting the Omer, A Spiritual Guide to the High Holidays. And an appendix is called Prayer, Beyond Lip Service. And there I describe prayer is emotional connection. It's emoting, it's emotional intelligence. Yes, a prayer book has original prayers that are time-tested, just like musical notes. But the key is to pray in the language that speaks to your heart. And just open up, whatever language it is. It's like crying to your father, to your mother, opening up, being vulnerable, celebrating your vulnerability. Now, at the same time, there are very powerful prayers like the Moda'ani, the Shema. So I suggest to people who don't really know Hebrew well, choose 1 or 2 prayers and work on that. But don't force it.
Yeah.
Speak from your heart. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So here's a good one. Is our soulmate already chosen by Hashem before we are born?
The Talmud says that soulmates are chosen. However, through our lifetimes, our actions can actually change the soulmate for the better. Now, when I say for the better, that doesn't mean the soulmate isn't good, but sometimes we earn our way to someone even more evolved. Let's put it that way. But it is chosen. But here's the big catch. You have to also choose. Because sometimes, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. When you're ready, you'll find your soulmate. Very often, we don't find it. Not because they're not chosen, because we're not ready. I remember seeing a couple that I was convinced that they're made for each other. And they were dating and this, and then they got too busy. This one was starting a new job. This one was traveling. And then they broke up. 7 years later, they met again and a little more mature. And they married. So they weren't ready yet, even though it was predestined. Wow. They just simply were distracted. You know, it's like all blessings. Blessings come our way, but sometimes we're not there to be aware. You have to be cognizant. You have to have your eyes open.
Yeah. Actually, it's bringing back the memory. Some of you may know, many of you may not, that Rabbi Jacobson generously officiated my wedding and was instrumental in the time that Miguel and I were dating and when we got married, and taught us so much in that period. But there was this idea that you brought to the chuppah, that they were souls that were waiting for each other. And,
right.
And so now I'm thinking of that moment and how beautifully you expressed. And so on the topic of relationships and marriage, if you are on a different spiritual path to your partner or want different levels of observance, how do you rectify that?
It's going to be conversation, and sometimes you may need a third party to help out. So you definitely stay away from anything that is not civil, arguments, judgment, blaming, pointing fingers. But 2 people love each other. I've never found that their spiritual or religious place would be getting in the way. There's usually other reasons if, for whatever reason, their relationship is compromised. It's never due to religion per se. There's always another thing. Because if you really love someone, you work with them. You understand each other. You know, God says, do never allow me, God, and religion to get in the way between husband and wife. So I find that it's never religion. There's always other factors. Sometimes it's control. One person wants control of the other. It manifests in the form of religion. And this is something that needs work. Maybe hard to really address in the scope of our conversation here. But if anyone's having that issue, they have to talk to someone who's wise that can say to them. You know, for example, one person wants to keep Shabbat and one does not. That could be a big clash. So even that can be addressed. Now, there are times where if people's values are so far apart, and that's why I would invoke the love. You know, let's say one person likes to go to theater and the other one doesn't like to go to theater. You can work that out if you love each other. So I don't mean to simplify it, but it's the same idea. Beautiful. The key thing is that if you love someone, you're interested that they grow. You're not interested in imposing your approach on them. Right. And if they love you, the same is true. So that has to be discussed. Like certain things make me grow. I feel I grow. And the other person who loves you will respect that. Even if they don't, even if they do things differently. This is where you need to have, where the conversation has to go.
Beautiful. Thank you. What happens if I can't keep Shabbat every week for various reasons?
Do the best you can. That's all. I mean, don't live in guilt or in feeling judged. Do the best you can and grow. All of us are always growing. You know, keeping Shabbat, you can technically keep Shabbat, but also not spiritually. You know, yes. So it has to be. I would look into it and just see what you can do and grow from there. That's the way it works. Everything Shabbat, the same thing with other commitments.
How do I connect more deeply with the Shechina? And maybe you want to explain what the Shechina is before you answer this question.
Well, the person who's asking it should really explain, because right. What they mean may not be what I mean. But Shechina means the divine presence, meaning how do you connect to a presence that's greater than you and your ego? That's how I would define it. And that's simply through what Kabbalah Hasidus calls bittul, a certain element of modesty, humility, suspension of self. It's not all about you. As soon as life is not just about you, the Shechina will emerge within your life. It's like what Michelangelo said. We alluded to it earlier. When they asked him, how did he sculpt those beautiful angels in the marble? He said, I carved and carved. I saw the angels trapped in the marble. I carved and carved and set them free. The Shechina is right now within you and within me. But there are obstacles, there are impediments, distractions. You get busy with materialism. You get busy with ego. You get busy with jealousies and pettiness and all kinds of other impediments, and they don't let the Shechina emerge. It's like the soul within you.
Yeah. Yes, that we build up these layers that block.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. The last question I'll ask is, how can we be both open to new ideas while still being steady in our belief system that we already have?
Look at a tree. A tree is the only object that grows in two directions. It has deep roots, and the deeper the roots, the more the tree can expand its branches, and if it's fruits, it's fruits. So being grounded in certain values is like a foundation of a building. It actually should create the security for you then to explore the adventure of life.
Yes.
So really, foundations are the key. It's like a bird that has a nest can then go fly. So first you have to build those secure pillars, the values, and then fly as far as you can.
Amen. You know, when I came to New York, I was 24 and I had a bag of samples, and off I was looking for a job, and everyone said to me, "You're so brave. How are you doing this?" And I didn't feel brave to me, but all I knew was that I had parents and a family who loved me and believed in me and supported me. And when you were describing the tree, I think of that experience. So if I hadn't had that loving nest and that belief system in my home, I don't know that I would have had the courage to go across the world and explore and reinvent and try new things.
Right.
We should all feel that. Bezrat Hashem, we should all feel that in our lives now, in our relationships, in our homes.
Absolutely.
Rabbi, I do want to say one thing before we close off, but even before I get to that, I wanted to say that everything that the Rabbi is talking about tonight is available in lectures, in writings, in YouTube videos, in audio, in essays on his website, ameaningfullife.com. And you just had an amazing week during Hanukkah where you saw such an outpouring of love and support for the work that you're doing. All of these resources are complimentary. Obviously, the books you purchase, but all of these resources are available for anyone to access anytime, anywhere in the world, off your iPhone, off your iPad, however you like to absorb your information. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for these years and years and years that I've been devouring and drinking in the knowledge that you've created and put into the world.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you. It's all at meaningfullife.com. And yes, we just came off a campaign where till the end of the year will be open called giftofmeaning.com, where people can contribute and donate. And it's been a great honor and a big outpouring, as you said, of love and support and a real vote of confidence in this work. So check it out.
Yes. And so I was learning about the month of Tevet that we're just entering, and I listened to a lecture by Rabbi Raskin on Chabad.org, and he was talking about the qualities of the month, and he was talking about the tribe of Dan. And the tribe of Dan, he explained, when the formation of the tribes moved through the desert, Dan was at the end, at the back, and so that if anyone lost something from one of the other tribes, the tribe of Dan had the responsibility to collect that item and to return it to that person in that place, whether it was a cloth or a doll or a hairbrush or whatever it was that the Jewish people had when they were moving through the desert, these objects. But then the rabbi just went on to talk about the idea of the lost souls, and that so many of us feel disconnected and don't have a sense of our souls. We feel disconnected from our connection to Hashem, from our connection to our core, to our light. And he also expressed that the tribe of Dan has the responsibility to find the lost souls and return them the way they return the lost objects, to find and spark that connection again, to help people understand the relationship they can have with their own soul. And when he was explaining that, I immediately thought of you and the work that you do at the Meaningful Life Center, really as being that quality in action, that quality in expression in this day and age. And so I thank you for helping me more deeply understand my own soul, for being able to then, please God, pass that on to my children, for the work that you do, collecting all the lost Jewish souls, or any soul who feels like they want that sense of connection and relationship. So I wanted to tell you that.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Michaela. You know, my birthday is this week as well.
I know. I didn't want to say, but you are a Tevet baby, so you could bring that up.
Yeah. I'm the 5th of Tevet in Hebrew and December 8th in the secular. So yes, it's a very touching role to play. I don't like the word lost souls per se between us, but I know what you mean. But I do feel that is a gift, a tremendous responsibility and blessing to be able to connect souls and help people uncover and discover their mission and their soul's mission in this world. And I thank you for your kind words and this opportunity to speak to your friends and to our friends. It was wonderful. It was beautiful.
Beautiful. Well, I hope that we can do it again. And I bless everyone that they should take something beautiful and meaningful from this conversation. And I hope that it carves a little place in your heart, and that it creates an opening for something new in your life, that it opens a door. This is what we're doing in these chats. It's just opening a door to a new understanding and awareness. And may you be blessed to take the light of Hanukkah, this transcendent light of the 8th day, into the coming months, into the coming year, and use it to create a wellspring and a ripple effect of light and beauty and love in the world.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Those blessings are beautiful, and I second them all.
Thank you. And look, I will save this conversation if anyone wants to watch it again. And you can find Rabbi at Meaningful Life, Meaningful Life on
Meaningfullife.com. Meaningfullife.com.
And Instagram?
And Instagram, Meaningful Life Center, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Beautiful. We will see you soon, and be well. Bye-bye.
Bye.